Hi, folks. I've been here with your Antifa News Briefa for August 27th, 2021. This one's about the Simpsons, magic, and anti-vax. Uh, this was actually prompted by, of course, anti-vax stuff is all in the news right now, but it was prompted by a comment someone left on my YouTube channel, so thank you for commenting. Please leave comments and like and subscribe and share. They asked, wouldn't Antifa be against mandatory vaccinations? Now, could just be a troll question. I mean, the person didn't have any content on their channel, like most trolls don't, but could be a genuine question, and I wanted to go ahead and address that real quick. It's a fascist genocide. Trump virus genocide is a fascist attempt at genocide. It's one of the ways Putin is trying to get revenge on America, or I don't know, just be genocidal against the world. And Trump and Bolsonaro and Modi, other puppets of Putin, are Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, are going along with this and spreading this virus genocide. And they've killed millions of people. So it is another type of Holocaust. It's a viral Holocaust, and it is a genocide. It's intentional. So opposing that, and they're fascists. They're actually legitimately textbook definition fascist. So opposing the fascist genocide is anti-fascist. Now, so encouraging the vaccine or ending the pandemic is anti-fascist because it's a fascist pandemic of genocide. So that's just basic. Now, mandating the vaccine, I can see how you would say, well, that sounds kind of fascist and authoritarian. So yeah, you wouldn't necessarily want to mandate the vaccine, which is why you want to encourage people to get the vaccine. So mandates wouldn't be necessary, or mandatory type of behaviors or rules, whatever, wouldn't be necessary. But the big point is, it's a fascist genocide that we wouldn't even have. We wouldn't even have to have a vaccine if they just appropriately responded as leaders instead of trying to encourage and increase it, which we all know Trump did. Now, uh, the Simpsons. What does the Simpsons have to do with it? Well, when they asked me, wouldn't Antifa be against vaccines? It reminded me of the Simpsons I saw recently. There's Simpsons magic that people are very aware of. You can watch videos about Simpsons prophecies, Simpsons predicting the future. Just search that kind of stuff, and you'll see lots of examples. They'll point out lots of examples. There's some I like to mention that this one in particular that I'm about to mention is something that changed. What the Simpsons were referring to was a cultural norm or a cultural reality at the time, only 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and it's changed since then. But the Simpsons generally age well because they kind of predict the future. They have a progressive mentality in the writers who anticipate future changes and sometimes just predict the future, such as the election of Trump, even bad futures. But there's an example of um, I think it's in the same season as the episode I'm mentioning here, the Boston episode. But in the same season, so about 5 years ago, 2006, I think, they had an episode with Arnold Palmer mentioned 3 times by Homer and Marge in their kitchen. And it happened to air, of course, it was made before the air date. It happened to air the date that Arnold Palmer died. And that was a strange type of magic, not necessarily a future prediction, but a magical coincidence. And I think of all coincidences being a type of fairy magic or the connections of magic in the world. And that was one example of that. Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, Vladimir Putin, Vladimir Putin, Mark Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg, Jair Bolsonaro, Jair Bolsonaro, Jair Bolsonaro. So that was one strange type of magic. This is a different type of strange magic. The Simpsons do predict things in the future, but as I mentioned in my video about the Quillaby episode of The Simpsons from a few months ago, just a couple weeks ago, I made the Quillaby episode, a response to the Quillaby episode of The Simpsons based on Morrissey. But a couple months before that episode aired, I made a video about Sorry I Used to Like Morrissey. And I love that episode of The Simpsons because it appeals to, it's like an episode for people who were recovering Morrissey fans. So, since he became a Brexiteer and went fascist on us. So, it felt like I was ahead of The Simpsons on that one. And then in just the next episode of the recent season, the current season, they had a joke about the president not giving up power because it was a projection of the future when Lisa has become president, and they're like, the former president still hasn't left yet. And she says, these presidential tantrums are getting longer and longer. Well, the problem with that is Trump's tantrum lasted longer than that. So they kind of missed the boat on that one. Trump already threw a longer tantrum than for that phrase to become correct. If Lisa was to become, like AOC or someone was to become president in 2024, 2028. So the point being that we may have crossed the Mobius with the Simpsons predicting the future. They may have hit a point where they'll still probably predict the future again, but we may be getting out ahead of the Simpsons in some way. Society may be progressing faster than the Simpsons can predict. I guess I can put it that way. The specific prediction I wanted to mention regarding vaccinations. There's an episode from that same season about 5 years ago, 2006, I believe, where the Simpsons go to Boston. They go on a hate-cation, like a hate vacation, to see how bad Boston is. But they end up loving it. We're loving all these things about Boston. And I won't spoil any more of it for you, except for one scene where Marge is in a park and she sees some lady who says some progressive things. I forget what it was that she says. But Marge overhears her and asks her, "Are your children vaccinated? Do you vaccinate your children?" And she's like, "Of course." And Marge is like, "Wow, you're progressive, but not crazy progressive." And that's the thing. In a few short years ago, the anti-vax, a very small minority of people in the, say, hippie community were also anti-vax. Or there was a very small minority of people altogether who were anti-vax, some of whom were hippies and left-leaning environmentalist types, people who don't trust the pharmaceutical companies, which I can agree with that. But we do need them. Like, they are evil, and yet one reason they've been able to become evil, so many of them, is because they provide things that we actually do need. And then they provide a bunch of other stuff, and this evil profit stuff and collusion with the government, just like oil companies, stuff like that. But they can do good things, and there's good people in the industries, of course. There's good scientists and people with good intentions, and this, the evil marketing capitalism side of it that messes it all up. But the vaccines are good. Even Trump told people the vaccines are good, which is probably going to get him in trouble with his followers ultimately, since he has the craziest, most terroristic, murderous followers. People in America are his base, so he's safer in jail. Anyway, put Zuckerberg and stuff too. Point being, DeSantis and stuff too. Point being that when she said this, it was associated with liberals or leftists or extreme, environmentalist type leftists to be anti-vax. And Jill Stein even had like an anti-vax part of her Green Party campaign when she was running for president. Since then, it's been co-opted by the KGB, by the KKK, by the right wing. They've super hyped it up. I even saw a troll say something like, the deaths of kids from flu was almost as bad in 2019 as it was in 2020. That shows COVID is fake. It was what they were trying to claim. Well, I looked at the statistics. They're like, look at the CDC statistics. And I looked at the statistics, but I went back a few more years, and I saw a trend going from like 30 deaths of children in a year from flu, say 10 years ago, to 50, to 100, to 150. And I can see this is the trend of these people pushing this agenda of anti-vax into the right-wing community and co-opting it with trolls and stuff like that and intensifying it. So that at this point, if you think anti-vax, you think Trumper, you think right-wing, which is true, because they blew up a mentality that's somewhat based on on a healthy skepticism, but has gone off the deep end. Jenny McCarthy helped take it off the deep end. She wasn't a leftist, but she helped take it off the deep end, saying it was caused autism, which it doesn't. Probably cell phones probably cause autism. Parents not paying attention to your kids because you're looking at your cell phones probably causes more autism than anything else. But they're not going to release that info anyway. Timeline matches up. But because they took over the anti-vax, then it's not a leftist thing anymore. It's a total right-wing thing. And it is totally bad. So yeah, it is Antifa to be pro-vaccination and stop this genocide. So please do that. And please watch The Simpsons, because they do have great stuff in there. They do have great attitude and great perspective on stuff. Thanks. Have a great day.